The First Purge is the fourth, yes, the fourth film in the Purge franchise, and it is about the first Purge that started this crazy tradition off. Now, while I could discuss for days why there are four of these movies, this is not why we are here. The Purge franchise has an interesting concept, but through poor writing and characters and the way it is played out, it has led to not the worst films ever, but certainly not the best. After seeing this, I still think the second is the best one. However, this comes in a strong second for various reasons that I shall get into. The film is directed by Gerard McMurry and stars some up-and-coming talent including Noel, Lex Scott Davies and Joivan Wade. Now the idea behind this one is that the first Purge takes place on the isolated Staten Island, New York, as a means to measure if the American public need the Purge or not. Now this leads to one of my biggest problems with the film itself, and this is neither a positive or a negative. The film would have worked a whole lot better if this was the first one, and by that I mean none of the other films have been made and this is the first Purge movie that has ever been released, because the whole build in this one is the question, will people purge? Will they participate and kill other people? And for the longest time in this film, the answer is no. The first part, people are just fornicating in public, doing drugs, looting and partying. Aside from one very cartoonish character who I will get into later, nobody goes out of their way to incite violence. If this was the first one made, that would have been a real good thought-provoking reflection to the audience when a character complains there is nothing happening, which is a mirror to our bloodthirsty movie-going ways. But with this being the prequel to 3 other films, that potential hook is gone. We know there is purging and it will eventually go off, hence why I feel this should have been where Blumhouse started with this franchise. Now that's more of an observation in regards to what I think of the film itself. There are things it does well and there are things it fails at. Starting with the characters, this film actually gives us some likable characters we can invest in, and ironically enough, the most likable character is a crime boss called Dimitri, played outstandingly well by Noel, who ironically enough doesn't wish for his syndicate to commit crime during the Purge and would prefer for them to stay in. Out of the whole cast, he brought it the hardest, both conveying the sensitive side and the aggressive side to utmost perfection, and was the character I always look forward to being on screen. Davis plays Naya, who I believe is supposed to be the ex-girlfriend of Dimitri, and while her characterization can get a bit irritating at times, she really brings life to the character with her attitude and is by far one of the strongest performances in any of these films. Both these actors are definitely worth keeping an eye on, but aside from them, we get some of the most bare-bones stereotypical characters you can think of. From the stereotypical sassy woman to the generic government official, a boring expositional doctor character, and the weakling who just can't step up. They are all included in this film, but the thing that bugs me the most is when characters are written and you can tell the screenwriter did not know what to do with them after a certain point. One character that falls victim to this is Skeletor. Yes, there is actually a character called Skeletor. Now granted, to Rotimi Paul, who plays this character, he goes all out, but this character is the most cartoonish villain in this series since the polite leader from the first movie, always laughing with a sadistic smile, scars covering his face and neck, drooling like he salivates for blood. Like, this character is so dumb and hard to take seriously, though Paul does a good enough job that you do have that tense feeling before he snaps, wondering when that exact thing will happen. However, his character is seen through half the film, then forgotten about, and you can tell his character is forgotten about just because he shows up so randomly later on. There is literally a moment which could have actually set up his big return, but that goes nowhere. And another character is the woman that comes up with the idea. She is featured heavily in the trailers, but very little of her is seen in this film. And again, once she fulfills the base purpose of her character, the film forgets about her existence, and her reappearance is only to tie up loose ends. When a film gives you half likable characters, and then half of them are just forgettable characters, it needs to do a lot of groundwork to make itself good. In terms of general good things, there are some great sequences, with my favourite being the tower block sequence, though honourable mentions go to the certain scenes involving Dimitri's gang that I will not spoil, And if you are watching this for the gore and violence, you will not be disappointed, because there are some amazing knife play sequences, and the choreography is one of the most brutal aspects of this film. And also, the cinematography gets some damn right amazing visuals, so hats off to the team behind the visuals. Negative wise though, I don't like how baity this film was. In previous films, all the outfits worn by purgers is creative, creepy stuff. But this, while I appreciate acknowledgement of current tensions in the real world, having these mercenary purgers dressing in KKK outfits and Nazi uniforms in this minority-dominated film is super heavy-handed. I'm not saying that if the purge was real, this wouldn't happen, because guaranteed some people would do that. But in an age where everything is trying to reference the progressive culture of today's society, I find subtlety works so much better. This film just gives a heavy-handed message that is not handled well at all, right down to the needless unmasking of a man with white hair and blue eyes. And speaking of mercenaries, why is it that all Purge films since the first one require mercs? Honestly, I enjoy the gang aspect of this film the most, so rather than insert mercenaries for the second half, have a few more crazies like Skeletor going crazy in a slasher format, whilst the gangs are using the Purge to try and off big rivals. That would have been a more interesting concept for the first ever Purge, but sadly this film goes down the same tired and tested mercenary route of the second and third films. This film brings nothing fresh or new to the franchise, and is quite literally this decade's Paranormal Activity, where Blumhouse just keep pushing these films out despite mixed receptions. Overall, this is 0-2 for Blumhouse, but I will say this is better than Truth or Dare because they actually gave us some characters that are likable. It's just a shame that the film never gives us a big moment that fully lets the idea of the Purge hit home. I wish I could specify that more, but that would go into heavy spoiler territory. I like the set pieces, some of the shots, and Yolanda delivers a fantastic MVP performance, but the writing and heavy-handedness of this film, along with some poorly written characters, has just made this another rusty cog in a long-dead franchise. The First Purge is nothing more than a lukewarm tea. So the First Purge, have you all seen it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and hit that round subscribe button for more reviews coming all the time. This is That Spikehead Podcast, signing off.